Morgan, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
All good, mate. All good. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, man. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to it, man.
Wicked, man. So another episode of the Diving Deep podcast. I've got Morgan Seatree on this evening. Somebody who I've personally been following for some reasons we'll get into in the podcast. Pretty similar vibe when it comes to house music. I want to give him a little bit of an intro. So he's based in Manchester. More of a lover of that sort of old school sound, but putting his new twist on it. He's had releases already on the likes of Stress Records, Too Many Rules, and Make You Move Records. He's already been getting support from big names from the likes of Roger Sanchez, Steve Lawler, Javi Bora, and he also runs and owns his own event brand, which we'll come on to talk about in the podcast. So welcome aboard, mate.
Yeah, man. Buzzing for it. Thanks for having me on.
No problems at all. Mate, where I sort of want to start from, where I start from with everybody is a little bit about their origin story, really, sort of where it started. So actually before house or dance music, whatever genre it was that got you into it, came along, where did it all start from you? The sort of the first love of music, I suppose.
I think it's always been there. I mean, like it's like what everyone says, isn't it? Like obviously when you're growing up, you're just around your parents, really, aren't they? Who are playing music and stuff, but they never really like housey stuff or any like electronic type of music. Do you know what I mean? It's just always been like when I was younger, I used to do like funny enough, like break dancing and just like it's like hip hop, like rappy and like break beat kind of stuff. And like that's where it kind of all started. And I've always been like just always moving and doing that sort of stuff. And then, but obviously from electronic side of things, it's never been that until you get a bit older. But I think my mum and dad, to be fair, weren't really like big players of music. I think it has come from like being at places like school and with my groups of friends who've always been around it. I think that's probably where it kind of started. And then you don't realize, I mean, until you get a bit older, really. Well, for me anyway, it wasn't really electronic music or any house music until I got to like my teens.
Yeah, it's interesting because like I would say most people that I speak to on here, it generally is leveraged more towards their childhood, but not everybody. And you're right, it's for most others, like what you're describing, it's generally the influences they're around as teenagers. Like when I was growing up in my teens, actually hip hop, it like in the late 90s was really big. And so I got into that. I was into dance music and that as well. So yeah, mate, it sort of seeps in, doesn't it? Just from the people you're around.
Definitely. I think like as well with that is like it's when from like primary school and stuff, not really, but then as you get to high school and you start, obviously you meet new people, and then as you kind of get through that towards the end of high school, like we towards the end, I remember Park Life. We was old enough to go to Park Life like when it's still in year 11 because before the age was 18. So that was like really when it first started. Do you know what I mean? And when we was able to actually go and experience like that type of thing for the first time as like somebody who wasn't 18. That's like where it kind of begun for me, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I mean, my similar thing was Global Gathering, but that obviously was dance music, but same thing. I went there underage, and exactly what you were describing. I was like, fucking hell, like whoa, basically. It was an eye opener. I've got to say, at like 16, 17, whatever I was at the time. So want to talk a little bit about electronic music then. So go right back to the start of that. What's your first memories of thinking like, yeah, this is something that I could get into?
Literally like that was, I remember it. I always say to everyone is like, went to my next door neighbor. Yeah. So he was like he was like 2 years older than me. So he was already he'd already been a couple of Park Lives before I'd ever kind of been to that kind of environment, kind of ever heard of it. And then when Park Life had released the age thing, so you could go there if you were 16, and this was in 2014. I'm 23 now. So basically, like we went to there. It was like my first time ever going to a festival. Never really heard like any of that type of music before. Obviously, like a bit of it, but not like live and like on big speakers and things like that. And then I remember he was saying to me, he's like, so it was Eats Everything and Seth Troxler back to back at the Temple. And he was saying to me, he's like, honestly, these are playing back to back. You'll love it. Like, it's just, they're both just slamming it together. So I was like, right, sweet, let's go. And when we went there, I remember him, he dropped that, Eats Everything, dropped that tune, that it goes, Love Parade, one of them.
Yeah.
And I was there like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then literally from there, I was just looking at him like thinking and like I knew straight away. Yeah. So then that was literally when I started DJing from there then.
Yeah.
Not like getting into production, but like DJing, got like a little Pioneer control, like it was the WeGo 3, the 250 quid one. Yeah. And just started mixing in my room. And that was probably especially from like my area, like especially from people who knew, no one was ever doing it. So I was kind of like one of the first ones from everyone who I know to start DJing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In kind of like my age group, because a lot of people near us now are DJing and trying to get in there and do their own thing, which is mint. But yeah, it was definitely that first festival at Parklife, which like just turned it for me. I was like, that was it. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, mate. I mean, that's an amazing intro to it, to be honest with you, like, because, you know, those guys are at the top of their game, and seeing that, amazing, I got to say. So for people
here as well, that 2014 is when, especially like Julio Bashmo was playing when his tracks was popping. It was that, that era, that house era, and everything was just like. So I was watching Julio Bashmo there when he was at the top of his game. So that was like the perfect time for me to just come in.
Yeah.
Watching him play, all these big name tunes that we love. That then was like still fresh. They'd only just come out, so everyone was just having it in the crowd. Like,
yeah, mate. He was a don as well at that time, I got to say. Some really big tunes out. So for people that don't know too much about your music style, when it comes to house music, how would you describe it, mate? So from a DJ perspective and from a production standpoint.
Say like DJing, like, is very much like, I've always looked up to people like Loco Dice and stuff when they're DJing, and they're very fast paced, like they'll throw vocals and they'll loop it. Yeah. So like when I play, and like everyone who comes to our events always say the same thing. It's always like high energy, not necessarily with like big build ups and stuff, but just like little vocal chops coming in. Similar to like DevStar as well, and them types of people, like just messing about with loops, cues, and things. Yeah. And I think that's mainly come, I would say, from Loco Dice, because I'm a big fan of like how he DJs and the way that he's obviously got a different setup because he uses his laptop and things like that. But he's always like, the way that he loops tracks and makes them sound completely different is just it just builds a mad energy. I think that's definitely DJing, but then like with production, it's always old school Kerry Chandler, like them, like all the Chicago boys are like my biggest influences, like your Inner Cities and your Larry Hoods and Kerry Chandlers, all them, like I try and like emulate similar to what your sound, like them, that old, because I wasn't about for them that type of music at the time. Like I didn't grow up with that, so I've always looked to that and studied it. And I've always learned about like, what components are needed, like 909s, learned about what different machines there was, because I do everything inside the box. Yeah. So I've always done that side of things. So then when I'm looking for sample hits, I know like what's needed to make, to kind of, when I was first learning, that's kind of how I started it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, you're preaching heavily to the converted, mate, because like it's exactly the same for me. Like that sort of sound. Can't 100%. I mean, to be honest with you, mate, making me feel a little bit old here because I sort of caught the tail end of it. But yeah, like I was very young at the end of the late 90s, but that sound was still prominent. But yeah, mate, that old school. And with me, there was a bit of a garage influence in there because they were doing the sort of like the snares and everything in there. That sort of still about, but it comes in and out. You know what I mean?
Little way the vocal chops and just the way that they can. But like that just does something to me when I listen to that type of music. A lot of what I see from a lot of people, I don't know if it's the same up near you, but like near us now, everyone's going to like like the Piv sound and like the crystal sound and all that. And fair play, like them guys are killing it in their own sound, but like everyone's seeing that as like a fad and like a thing at the moment where everyone's buzzing off it. Yeah. But for me, it's just never done anything. Like I wouldn't be being true to myself if I went, and I could probably make that sort of stuff if I wanted to, but I don't enjoy it. So like, what's the point? But I know like a lot of people are trying to go and emulate those guys, but you've got to think they created that, and like you're never probably going to get to their level. And like you've got to find your own kind of vibe and do you've got to make what you want to hear in a club or like what you enjoy listening to, aren't you?
100%, mate. I'm a massive believer in it, and like I say, both quite like the same vibe when it comes to house music. And the truth of the matter is, and you probably agree with this, that it's a sound that's around, but it's nowhere near as popular as what it is that you're describing. That like minimal sort of, that is like, to me, it's all I hear these days from younger people.
It literally all sounds the same. And I always think like a lot of them guys are doing it because it probably is quite straightforward to kind of make. I mean, it's like, it's obviously it's thin drums, you know, it's not, they're quite shiny. There's no like rough cut to it.
No.
There isn't really much vocals in it. It's just like a proper heavy over processed kick drum, a little bass and like some and like the pads and things. But it just, I don't, it doesn't give me any energy. And like, I can, it's good if you're probably coming into a night and you first getting in and it's a warm DJ, it's perfect for that for me. Is the way I would describe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is it's just mad. I mean, fair play to them boys because they started it and that's their vibe. And look how well they're doing now.
Yeah.
It's good to them. Like they've got them. That's probably what they enjoy doing, which is fair play.
Yeah. Disclaimer to anybody who comes across this: we're not saying that it's not good because, like, you know, it's all art and it's totally up to what people want to do. But I've seen exactly the same thing happen in tech house when that got really big. It the earlier stuff and the really early stuff was actually really good, but as it got like into the 2010s and that, it was still good then. Obviously, deep house was the thing then. And tech house was starting to grow, but like everything, it's a little bit like that minimal sound that you're describing. It got saturated and done to death. And I'm not saying that like that, I don't know what you call it, like it's like a Hoover sound on tech house.
Yeah, well, after it drops and it goes.
Yeah. It's just like, I mean, I can't remember who I was listening to an interview on YouTube and like he was a big name. I forget which one it was actually. And I'll tell you it was Demure. Demure. And he was just like, guys, it's just like, please stop with the fucking Hoovers for God's sake. You know what I mean? Because it's like you say, everybody or a lot of people, they follow these trends, but you're best to just stick with what it is that you want to do.
And you know that as well. I'm also a big believer in like, you do kind of, obviously when you're learning production, you might not necessarily be able to make it, but you know what you like. And like, I had I don't know if you know him, a DJ called Sarah Alba, and he's had released on like Hot Creations and things like that. And he's always been like, when I first started, I had him as like a mentor. Do you know what I mean? At the time, he'd released on like Hot Creations, Moon Harbour, and that's when I was first getting into it because he was mastering my tunes. So he kind of from there was giving me, tips on what I need to do, and like he's always taught me from the start. Like for me, less is more. And that's when I was making like the cheesy tech house stuff. When obviously you always experiment with the sounds, don't you, before you get to a set level. Absolutely. And he's always like taught me from the start, like just little tips that have helped me so much. And I think that's key. Like always, I think it is quite key to have someone who knows who are levels above you, who can like guide you and give you tips and show you what to do. Especially when at the time I was like 18 when I started producing, so I was well young, and he was like a lot older. So it was good to have that to be able to kind of help me.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Would you, from a like producer's perspective, are you what a class is like quite a fast producer, or do you take your time with things? Do you get an idea down and it's like, right, let's get it done? You know what I mean? Because you get different sorts of producers, don't you?
Yeah, it literally all depends. Like that one I posted the other day, that new one, like literally. I knew I wanted to do. I've been like studying loads of the old piano-y, ravey, breakbeat tunes. So I knew I wanted to do a track with a big like piano riff in it. Yeah. So I got the riff down, and then I built some like drums around it. And then obviously when you're in that 8-bar loop, I just found a vocal that just worked with it. And then once I've got an idea, and I always go by the rule, like if it's making me dance around my room, if I'm like producing stood up, I know like I need to, like it just makes me want to finish it. And I'd usually just get like a rough arrangement done in a day. Yeah. Not like just not polished or anything, rough, leave it, come back to it maybe like obviously when I've got time to come back to it. Sometimes like I just kind of know him. I'm very like quite self-critical, so I'll know if I'm not if I think it's good, but I'm not feeling it. then usually, I mean, I probably shouldn't do it, but I just scrap it. I just get rid of it and start again. Like I'm so like, that's probably one of my downfalls, I reckon. I'd say, because I've got like, I'll start tuning rather than saving it. I'll just scrap it if it's not making me like jump up and down in my room and dance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's horses for courses. Like
everyone's different.
Yeah, I am a finisher of tunes. I always have been. Yeah, sometimes you sit there and think, fuck's sake, like, you know, I've just spent like 3 days on this and for what? But you know, it's a weird one because I don't know if you've experienced this. Sometimes your ears can deceive you because when you know what it's like when you're working on music, you hear those sounds over and over and over and over like thousands of times. And you do, yeah. And what you started off with on day one, where you were like, yeah, this is good. You know what I mean? Like there's something about this. Yeah. By the time day 3 rolls around and you finish your arrangement and everything like that, it's like, it's done to death in your head. And sometimes I get to the end of tunes and I think, I don't think this is very good actually. But then a week or two later, I'll listen to it and I'll think, do you know what? This is all right because it's just, you've done it to death in your own head. Don't know if you experienced that.
Oh yeah, I think everyone's the same, and like that's why also I've got a lot of friends and that who obviously producers, and it's mad how different everyone is. Like I've got guys who they'll say like they'll be EQing a hi-hat for like an hour, and they said like they're just so like they get so caught up in the mixing before they've done the arrangement. Yeah. And they're so like particular about how everything sounds before they've even got to it, and then they're like, well, I've looked 6 hours has passed, I'm still not further than 8 bars of the track. And then they just end up like hating it, and like it's you probably would if you're hearing a hi-hat for God knows how long. Like that's where I kind of I like to get things done. I do like to get things done. I always start with, like a lot of people always start with drums, I always just put a kick and a clap down and start with my melodic idea first. And then once I've done that, I'll just build drums around it. And that's always worked from the start for me. Because a lot of like when you learn and you watch the tutorials, people are like, yeah, build your drums first. I think that's more the tech housey sound where there isn't much melodic stuff in it. For our sound, that's the lead part, the stuff that catches the ear's interest, in my opinion.
100%, mate. I'm the same. And you're probably one of the only people that I've spoke to that actually shares that view. Because for me, the way I look at it is, okay, maybe at the start of if you're just trying to get to grips with what sound you want to make, but once you've sort of landed on what it is that you actually want to do, reality is building drums is not rocket science, is it? And but if you can't get a vocal to sit or find a vocal or whatever, and you can't get those lead elements down, to me, the tune's going nowhere, because I can build drums in 20 minutes, you know what I mean? And get them to sound, because it's like when you know what sounds you're looking for and you're using and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm a huge believer, mate, in doing the lead bits first for what we do.
Yeah, definitely. And like a lot of mine and probably yours as well, it's very like vocal led, melodic led. And if you're making it, like I put a post on like yesterday on my page, and I was like, I'm literally just trying to aim to write stuff that, like, when I have kids, I want it, every time I make a track, I want it to be that it can be played in 10 years and it still sounds mint. And then it could be the ones that my kids are calling, like we listen to the older stuff now. I want to try and make stuff so that when, kids' can listen to it, and that's the stuff they're saying is the old school stuff. And like, as time goes on, like a lot of people, like Rich, I took that tip from Richie Ahmed, and he was like, all the stuff he releases on 432, he's like, it's tunes that he thinks he can play in 10 years and it sounds mint still. And like, that should be the aim for everyone who's producing, in my opinion, because what you want to love your own tunes. I love listening back to my stuff, but some of the stuff I hate it. So it's just, and I know in myself as well, like if it's not right.
Yeah, definitely.
And you just know you do have a feeling. You're like, oh, this is the one. Every tune I go, oh, this is the best one I've done. And then I'll make another one, and I'll be like, oh, it's all right. And then I make another one, like, nah, this is the best one I've done.
Yeah, mate. Been through that many times, mate.
You think, oh, do you know what? I can't write a better tune than this. And then you write one, and then you think, nice. But it's funny as well, like what you think might be your best tune. Yeah. It's why you shouldn't throw tunes away, which I do, is because, like, for example, I could make a track that someone like Seb Zito loves, or I could make a track that, you know, someone like Mark Knight loves, but if I swapped them round, Seb Zito wouldn't like that, and Mark could like, and vice versa.
Mate, you bang on. It's so subjective, the whole thing. And that's like a tip that somebody gave me a long time ago, is to make tunes in batches. You don't make a tune and think this is great and send it somewhere. Make 10 or 20 and then look back at them in completion, and you'll probably, what you thought, for instance, like the first 3 where you're like, this is the best tune, this is the best tune, this is the best tune. 10 later, those first 3 might not be the best 3 out of the 10 or 15. And I've got to be honest, mate, it's a top tip to like make tunes in batches.
And like, that is literally like, I wish I did that, because, and like every producer will get stuck in the same boat, is like, once you make it, it's so hard. I mean, it's probably a skill to be able to sit on that tune and go and make another one, because you're on such a buzz from it. I just want to send it straight to a manager and say, right, where we send it, you know, like I'll send it to Sheena. I'll be like, right, where are we sending this now? Like, because, and that's probably a bit of my immaturity coming out as well. I'm just like I always need like people to level me down.
Yeah.
Like, it's good that I have it, because otherwise if I was, the mistake that I made before I got like management and stuff like that, is like I was sending like my early stuff, which was absolutely crap, to loads of DJs, loads of labels, and then I've probably burnt bridges with all them DJs and labels now. So they'll probably see. So like it was good as soon as I got that, you know, having influencing people who knew what they was talking about, who knew what it was doing, to tell me, right, you're not there, you know, you need to do this, do that, stay grounded, and it's the best thing that could have ever kind of happened, really.
Definitely, mate. I completely agree. So I want to talk a little bit about your event, because obviously you have an event, so you do some promotion as well. So how did that all come about, mate?
Basically, so I do it with my friend Branny. So we basically, the way that it all started is that we've been mates for a while, like been, you know, a couple of festivals abroad together and things like that. And we went to Sunwaves in Romania. And when we came back from there, he created a SoundCloud page just for, you know, to post, because he just DJs, he's just getting into producing. So at the time, I'd already had like played quite a few gigs and things like that, and played quite a few places. And he started the SoundCloud just to post mixes for him and his friends and like people like me, you know, if we wanted to do a mix, to post it out. And then I was like, as soon as we created it, I thought, do you know what, we can make it into an event. Like the name of the brand is Adansim. So what that means is, that means deep in Romanian. So like our sounds is obviously, the Romanian sound was quite minimal, but like we, you know, ours is very like deep classical house and like proper underground rough tunes. So like we was like, we'll just roll with that name. And then I was like, we can make it into an event. And then from there, we just used people that I knew him, and we started putting on parties in Manchester at South. Don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's like, it's one of the, since Sankey's shut, it's probably like the most underground basement that you're going to get in Manchester, with a big sound system. And then from there, we've just literally, we started that, we did our first party in Feb 2019, but then we had COVID after. Yeah. So we had the one for May. We was literally going to do another one in May, had COVID, had like 18 months off, and we was like, right, let's just park it. At the time, I was just doing loads of production at the time, so I wasn't really focusing on it. And then after it came back, did the return party, just sold out, like it was just mad. And then from there, it's just from that return party, because for the first one we did, it was more of our mates that were there. Yeah. You know, it wasn't really like people that we didn't know. But like since that time frame, like my profile and stuff's grown, and I've started gaining with my music more people from our area that didn't know me before. So and then obviously it's word of mouth from the first party, and that's a big thing for us, is like we don't spend any money on promotion. We just do it all word of mouth, you know, whether that's just speaking to people or people who've been to the party are speaking to people. Dead organic. Like that's what we want to make our parties with, like, because in Manchester you've obviously got warehouse and stuff. Yeah. It's like a lot of parties I've been to personally, it's just full of trouble. And like we want our parties just to be like everyone knows each other. Everything's sound. It's all about the tunes, and that's the key for us. So keeping it word of mouth is essential for us to make sure the vibes always party vibes, and you don't want to be stood there thinking like, oh, what's he up to? You just want to be enjoying music, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. From how have you found the sort of job of doing the promotion? Because like having ran a few parties myself, mate, it tends to come with some fairly interesting situations with shit going wrong and plans going wrong. So how have you found that so far with running them?
Yeah, like, I mean, I personally couldn't be more grateful for like the turnouts that we get. I think like we have got something good going on, especially with I think it's all about timing as well with like the people when the unis are in and with Manchester, I mean, Manchester and London are probably your two main kind of cities for scene wise. And like we're quite lucky with numbers that we get. We've never had a problem with like filling it. And then the only thing I would say is like it is like a full-time job on like the side. Like, it's when as soon as we announce a party, I find my productivity with making music goes down, and it more like finding tunes goes up, which is probably a natural thing to do. But then also it's like my girlfriend always say I'm always on my phone. Do you know what I mean? I'm always like sharing stories, promoting it, and glued to my phone, and I shouldn't be. No. And that's probably one side of things that I'd find like it's just full. It is so full on because I'm like, I've put money into this. I want to make sure that this, the club's full. You're always thinking, is anyone going to turn up? Even though the last one was full, all these thoughts go through your head because you put money into it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it is a tricky one.
100%, mate. I mean, it actually disgusts me when I look at my screen time for my phone. I'm not actually going to say this. It's over 7 hours on average. It's just like, that just shouldn't be happening. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's a full-time job. You know what I mean? But I know exactly what you're saying. When you do what it is that we do, you've always got shit coming through, haven't you? You've always got people to reply to. You've always got comments, and you want to make sure that you're replying to those comments. And like, for anybody who listens to this who doesn't get involved in the music industry, honestly, like, social media in the music industry is mental, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the maddest things. Like, I think a lot of the older boys who've already, before it was even about, like, who've made the names for them, probably lucky because they've got the following of the organic, the people where you're not having to build something. And now it is like, I always say to people who aren't really into music, as I always describe it to make it to like a high level, playing all the big parties, you need obviously talent, you need a bit of luck, but it's as hard as becoming a footballer for a professional team, probably if not harder.
Completely.
Like it's literally like that. Like there's so many people doing it. It's like, how do you stand out? And you've just got to. That's when it comes into doing it for the right reasons and enjoying it, because otherwise you just quit at the first hurdle, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely, mate. It's exactly what you're saying. Having good music you need that. You need people that are into it, but being a good DJ these days, whereas to be honest with you, mate, like I say, I'm a little bit older than you, but back in the day, it wasn't as saturated because, to be honest, these in particular, they like weeded a lot of people out, no offense, because you have to put serious time in, mate, to learn how to DJ on vinyl, and to be honest, like me and my mates, like, I got my first set of decks when I was about 15, 16, belt drive vinyl, and a few others did. I was probably the only one that ever stuck it out. One or two others did, but didn't carry it on because people would just be like, fuck this. After like a month, after just, bear in mind, no YouTube, nothing like that. It's just clanging beats in their ears. I'd just be like, this is just too hard. Obviously, technology's come along and it's made it more accessible to people. And that's the same with production as well. So you're absolutely right in what you're saying. We are now in an extremely saturated environment, but on the flip side of that, we've got platforms which we never had when I was a teenager, mate. That sounds like a right old bastard here, but it's the truth. You know what I mean? Like there was no way to really put yourself out there for people. Like, I find it still mad now, mate, where I can speak to somebody across the other side of the world. I mean, that just wasn't an option for me, mate, when I was 16,
Yeah.
Pros and cons.
Yeah, there is flip sides to it both. I mean, like, I can't. I'm actually like I always think to myself, like, the way that things have happened and the way that things are going is like it's mad how much up and down it goes. Because like at times you're thinking, oh, what am I doing here? And then something will just happen, which we'll get into later, and then it's just like, that's why I'm doing it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like little things that keep you going throughout it, and then you might have a dip again for like a year, but then something will happen and it'll just get you, and then you're like, oh, that's why I'm doing it again. It's mad how it works.
It's definitely a roller coaster journey, mate. I mean, I find it where in between releases, I'm like, fucking hell, like nothing, you know, like you feel like nothing's happening for you, do you? And then you have a release, and if that does well, then you're like, oh, you know, like we're back on track, you know. So I want to ask you a question around so far. Are there any particular sort of things that you would say stand out that you're really proud about so far?
Yeah, like there's a couple of things that like the first thing that really happened, which I was like crazy, is like I made it was my first like kind of proper release. I'd say it was Something for Your Soul. It came out on Mark Jenkins' label Name Dropper. So he started his label Name Dropper, and like I'd always watched kind of interviews with like people like Salado. They're from round near me in Manchester. And, you know, they've always said from the start, they got big. They were sending Mark Jenkins tunes, you know, when they was unknown, when they was still trying to get them. And like Mark Jenkins was the first one to support their music. So I was like, right, I made it like a mission. I was like, right, I'm going to message Mark Jenkins when I had something, when I thought was concrete. I was like, I'm going to message him. Just DM'd him on Instagram. I was like, I just said, yes, mate, how you doing? Dead polite to him. Sent him the track. And he was like, mate, I've just started my label. I knew he'd started his label because I'd already followed him. And he was like, I want to sign it up to the label. So I was like, mint. And then Sheeno, who's now my manager, who manages Mark as well, they was kind of a few of those guys running the label. And then I just said to Mark, I was like, you know, what kind of happens like with management and things like that? And he was like, I'm going to speak to her and see if I can, you know, get you in there, because I think always coming from like those types of names, you know, if you've got someone like that who can send a tune to a name that they know, they're going to listen to it. And it's just, there's a lot of kids like me who are probably sending music to people. And if it comes from someone that they know, they're going to listen to it. So when the release came out, she basically sent it over it got distributed on promo and things like that. And Steve Lawler downloaded the tune before it came out. This is in 2019. And then I was just in the gym on my phone, just scrolling through Instagram, and I seen a video from what was Sankey's in Ibiza, which is now Octave or something. And Steve Lawler put a video. It was like, you know, Warriors closing party, like unreal. And I was like, I'm sure that's my tune. So I was in the gym. I was in the gym there, just about to do. Well, I'm sure that's my tune. Listen to it. I was like, but I didn't download it at the time. So like Steve Lawler basically, he played it then. And he was playing it. All my mates was going staggered to, you know, Ants at Ushuaia. And he was playing it all summer, every single gig. I was getting vids sent to me. This is before it had come out. But this is like the first thing I'd experienced. I was like, what is going on? You know, like on the big stage in Ibiza, it's getting whacked and everyone's just like having it to my tune, which had made the bedroom over there.
Mate.
and then like, I was actually going Ibiza for the closing party, and Steve was playing, but I didn't know this at the time. And he invited me down. I went backstage with him, watched him play my track, met all like Andre Olivia, Joris Vaughan and all them. And that was the first moment for me where I was just like so proud. I was like, unreal experience all around, like to meet all my heroes and I would film my track being played and he turned around to me, he was just doing that. It was mint.
Mate, fair play. I mean, it is a surreal experience, isn't it? You know, when you know, like you say, end of the day, I'm the same. You know, we've got a room which is our studio. We're not, you know, we're doing stuff from home, and you think to yourself, like, when you hear one of your tunes on the radio, national radio, or you see a bigger DJ playing it, you're like, fucking hell, like this, I made this, and like you see all the people going mad to it. It's surreal, isn't it? For anybody who obviously doesn't work in this, but
it's mad. Yeah, it's like, but that's the biggest drive, I think. Like when I saw that, it makes you, all those self-doubts where your voice is telling you that's not good enough. It's like I always use that as to say, if one of them are playing it you're doing something right, keep doing what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? Because they wouldn't be playing it at the other. So that's like, I always, since that moment, I've always used it. And like, Sheena's always said to me, she's like, that's the reason why you need to believe in yourself. And, you know, and just keep doing what you're doing. Like, because the moment you start doubting yourself and thinking that something's not good enough is the moment that it's only you that's putting yourself down. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially with them sorts of crowds, like, I think it's just meeting them as well. Like, it was, you know, you see them on pictures and things. I was thinking, oh, it's mad. it's mad to meet them.
But it's I don't know if you find this, but like doing what we do, it can be quite lonely, can't it?
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's such a singular thing, and like you say, you're taking this time, you're making the music, you think it's good, you've no idea what other people think. You're sending it out. You don't know how it'll be received. You don't know if any bigger people. It's sort of thing where it can twist your mind out of it, can't it? You know, I've always found.
It's that voice in it telling you, you know, why you're doing it. Like, it's always, and that's more like, I find that's more like when I'll get into like the later stages of a track, and that's when it goes back to that point. I'll know when I know something, but like them ones that I do finish where I'm not 100% on, that's me at the start already doubting the track, you know, not believing in it from the start. Like, someone is gonna like that when you get to a, you know, when you've learned, you know, what you're doing and you've got to a set level, someone is gonna like it, and it's just down to you kind of telling yourself that you're not. So you should always see a track through, which is something that's like one of my goals for this year. Like, make sure that I just keep making as much as I can, and then at least I've got a bank of tunes then to listen back to. Because when, like you say, when you're not making it, you go back to it in 2 weeks, it might sound better than you thought. Like,
it's a weird one. I had a very similar experience with this a couple of years ago, where I sort of set myself this goal. I was like, I'm going to put a tune out every month, whether or not it's on my label or self-release or whatever the case may be. I'm going to, you know, I wanted to get some momentum going. I made this tune and I grabbed like the most well-known sample ever in the world, the Letter Holloway, Ride on Time, you know, Ride on Time. And I sent it to the guy who was managing me at the time, and he was like, yeah, the tune's pretty good. He's like, mate, you know as well as I do, we can use that sample. It's been done. And I was like, yeah, no, you're right. I was like, I think the tune's all right. I thought it was just okay. And he was like, oh, I know a vocalist. I'll see if she'll sing a hook for it. And I was like, all right, sound. I was like, well, ask her to sing something similar. You know, I don't want her to like make it into a song as such. I just want the hook. It come back. It was all right. You know, I thought, wow, it'll keep things going. I didn't expect anything of it. I put it out. It started getting caned on the radio. Sam Devine was playing it. Honestly, mate, at that point, I thought, fuck me, I know nothing. Do you know what I mean? I know nothing, because I genuinely thought that's just going to be a filler release. It's just going to be a release that's just going to keep me going with things. So you've no idea.
Yeah. And that also is like, it's just a prime example, isn't it? Like, you just don't know you don't know how your track's going to be received. Like, obviously we've now got Instagram where we can post and get a gauge and idea of things, and you can obviously play it out and see how it goes down. But like, it is key just to finish as much music as you can. And just like keep, like, especially if, you know, if you're working and things like that, it's like that time you do get in the studio is precious time. So just go in there, crack on. I think I do always find, like, if I've not got an idea of what I want to do before I go in, I'd never get anywhere. I've always got to have if I've got a track that I want to make something like, or if I'm analysing a lot of older stuff, and usually when I'm digging for my, you know, when I've got an event coming up, I'm digging for my DJ sets, I'll always make notes of tracks that I'm loving or that go down well in the club, or like that I'm really feeling, older tunes, and then I'll try and see and that's when I break a track down and I'm thinking, right, what kind of drums have they used? You know, I can see they've used an organ, they've used the piano, but I want to make it my own. So it's nothing. It doesn't sound anything like the original, but you know, you in yourself, you think, oh, I've done it to copy that. But if anyone listens to it, and even them, it wouldn't sound anything like it. But that's what gets you going, isn't it? And gets you like through that stage of arranging.
100%, mate. I've met other producers that I think I've sort of worked out that I think a lot of it is to do with your personality, who, you know, what sort of person you are and how your brain works. I'm similar to you. Some people, do you know, you heard of Mark Spence?
Yeah.
Birmingham. Well, Mark he's like what I call is a creative's creative. He goes in the studio with no real set sort of guide as to what he's going to do. And he'll just say, bro, we're just jamming. And I'm like, I can't do that. I have to, like, I'm like you. I have to gain inspiration from another track, or I have to have an idea of what it is that I want to do. And like you say, I will look at I suppose you could call it a reference track, and I'll be like, right, okay, I see what they're doing here. You know, I see what sort of sounds they're using, and I'll go and find them, make them, do something with it, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I cannot just go in there and just be like, what we doing today? Get my keyboard out or fuck about with a sample. It just won't go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm exactly the same, mate.
It's interesting because like it's got to be something to do with what sort of, because all my creativity comes from structure.
Yeah, and the way you kind of start, and yeah, it is one of those ones, isn't it? I think everyone does it differently. It's like you'll get people, like I think it goes back to like building people who build the track with drums at the start and things like everyone does it. It's like you could all get the same training at doing something. You know, if you're a cook, you're all gonna get the same recipe, but you're all gonna make it different. Like you're not gonna. Everyone's got their own kind of sound and their own way to do things, and that's also the good part, because like if you all take the same course and you all do it, you're gonna have someone who's more clever. You're gonna have someone who's gonna have their own way of working it out in their head and doing it, and that's just the way that it's the same in music, isn't it? The same with making music, really.
Definitely, mate. I want to talk a little bit about DJ experiences, because we've all had some good ones and bad ones. So let's start with the good ones. So any particular highlight gigs or particular moments you can think of where you thought, fucking hell, like, this is why I'm doing this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, I think definitely got a bit. I mean, I always obviously had a few bookings and things like that before we started our own party, which were good. But like when you do your own party, and it's like you've got that sense of, I've put this on. Everyone is, because we've put this party on. You know, you have a different engagement with the crowd, like because they all know you, or you've got people who they know about the brand, they know about the party, and then when you play one of your own tracks, like every time I play something that's my own, or like if I've put a clip on that's unreleased and I play it, I think probably the best moment would be like we had our second birthday, which was played. It was in Feb, 4th of Feb, which has just gone.
Yeah.
So that was a big one for us. Like we had a mint turnout, and probably the tune that went off the most is I played that, that Live Enjoy, that Don't Stop Moving, Don't Stop. I just played it and everyone was just going mad, and it's just like. Just the energy was crazy, and I'm like one in there. I proper like dance when I'm playing and stuff like that. So it was just like because at the end of the day, like before I was a DJ and I was in the crowd and stuff. So like I'm always before my set, I'm in there just speaking to people, doing my thing, and then when I'm playing, I always dead high energy and things like that, because that's what gets me going. And when I'm feeling it, it's just because I'm feeling the music though. It's just the way that I'm doing things.
Yeah, wicked, man. So, got to ask you about any particularly bad experiences you've had whilst DJing, either mistakes you've made that you've thought, fucking hell, like, or just terrible gigs.
Do you know, to be fair, like I think the worst thing that's happened to me is probably everyone's worst nightmare, is like I was playing at Park Life After Party, which is at South, and I put my USB in, but it wasn't my USB. It was the CDJ, right? So the CDJ was dodgy. So I've put my USB in. The guy before me is still playing, and I've took over. So everyone's thinking, right? Oh, here we go. He's coming on now. Put my USB in. It's like USB not loaded. Not recognizing it. Shit. So I was like, right, it can't. So I've got like a few spares. I put all of them in. They weren't working. So I thought, right, it's definitely not my USB. Got one of the other DJs to put theirs in, and it was the CDJ. So I was like, we're gonna have to turn the CDJ on and off it. But so we had to. But like the track what was playing was like coming to an end. So I was like, shit, what am I gonna do? So I had to loop this track for like a minute and a half. It was only on a 4-bar loop, so it sounded terrible. So the crowd was like, what is he doing here? So I was just thinking, it's not ideal this. And it just got it going, just had to like flip it out, whacked it, just started in, like I started off with just a vocal, so it kind of like was okay. It was an okay for me to start, but I was just like, no, it's not me. I just had to. There's nothing I could have done, but it was like a worst nightmare though. Full club, that happening is just not what you need.
No. Have you had the emergency loop thing? Yeah.
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
Fucking hell, mate. That's
nightmare.
Yeah, mate. I mean, the new technology is amazing, but like I say, when it goes wrong, you look a right dipstick. Whereas back in the day, to be honest with you, with vinyl, the worst thing that could happen is the needle breaks, and then mate, it's game over. Needle breaks, and
yeah, that's it.
Everybody knows what's gone on. But yeah, mate. I mean, I don't think in this day and age there'll be too many DJs, mate, that haven't either stopped the wrong deck or pulled the wrong USB out, or I mean, it's especially if you've had a few drinks, or chemically aroused, or however you want to call it. But I mean, it's easy doable, isn't it? When, especially if you're nervous, if there's 40 DJs there and you're thinking, fuck, no, like, don't fuck this up, and it's easy done.
Yeah, definitely, mate. No, it's one of those ones. Like, it's just, I'm quite a confident person, so it's never been like an issue with like the crowd being there, but you are always thinking that I just need to make sure I get everything right. And but then once you get the first tune out of the way, you're in. Then you're just doing your thing.
Settle in, don't you? So, mate, I want to talk a little bit about the future, really. So, what is the sort of dream for you? Where would you like to take this, if you could?
Yeah, like it's probably the same for you as well. Like everyone, like I'm a DJ before anything. Like before I started, the reason I started producing is because I wanted to play on the big stages. I wanted to have not just a UK audience. I want to be known, in all the other countries. I want to be playing all abroad. And the reason why I want to make records that just you can listen to. Everyone loves them. So obviously everyone's into the music, and then obviously that comes hand in hand with getting booked in the big stages, getting into the the right crowds and things like that. So yeah, it's got to be just making a career out of it, really, and being able to do it as a living, and also be playing with people that we look up to on the big festivals, big clubs, which is the reason why I always started it. It goes back to that first experience. I wanted to be that guy up there and do that. Yeah,
mate, I really admire you for being honest there about the fact that you're a DJ before you're a producer, because I was the same. And I think, like, when I ask people that question, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I don't think some of them are that honest. I think they talk about how it's all about music production, and I'm like, well, let's be honest. Yes, say for instance, I suppose if I could turn it another way, if you'd have had a route just as a DJ to get onto that big stage, you probably still would have ended up making some music, but not the way we go about it now, because there would have been no necessity. It's like Carl Cox back in the day. He did make music, but he wasn't in his studio pounding records out, because he built his fan base and everything through being a DJ. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, mate. No, completely agree.
It's a different. Obviously, things are different now. Like we said, to even get to that point, you've got to be right hot on the music production, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. That's the only way to do it. Literally the only way. There's no two ways about it.
Can you talk a little bit about stuff you've got in the pipeline, or is it all a bit undercover? Or
literally, there's something massive, which is like I'm just waiting for the go ahead. Major label, like huge thing. I'm just waiting. I just can't say anything yet. I'm just like I've known since before Christmas, and obviously how it was with him. Like the contracts and things like that are just so meticulous. I'm just basically waiting for him to say it, so I could be like, yes, this is what I've got. But other than that, though, it's going to be like obviously growing our party. We're going to be looking to get some bigger and bigger names in day and night parties. So on top of that, I've got big releases coming up, but I just can't say anything yet. But I'm just going to be, my main focus this year is getting my big releases out, still having a couple of smaller underground releases, and focusing on my party. Like that's going to do the right things to get me where I need to be in over time. So yeah, that's my main focus for this year, really.
Yeah, sounds like a great plan. So mate, we're sort of bordering towards the end of things, but before we sign off, I always do ask people to maybe give 3 pieces of advice that you would offer to maybe either new producers, DJs coming in, or just from what you've sort of picked up from yourself from your time doing it?
I'd say like I'll do one for DJing, one for producing, and just a random one. So I'd say for producing is like make what you want to hear on the dance floor, and also like less is more, 100%. Like, you know, I've been focused, like sometimes look at things like, have I got enough channels in my track? Less is more. Like your ear will be trained up to do, you know, over time, your ears are your best tool that you can have. Yeah. You know, you don't necessarily need to have the fancy plugins or anything. Just make what you want to hear. You know, if anything, refer it to someone if you've got someone to refer it to, and see what they think about it. Someone who's obviously in the same kind of vibe, and just do your thing. Like make what you want to dance to and what you love, because otherwise you're not being true to yourself, and over time that's going to show.
Yeah.
DJ wise, I'd think just like full energy, you know, just enjoy it, and just when you're playing, just have fun with it. Like I feel crowd vibe off your energy 100%. Like you could be playing something or you could mess something up, but if you're still loving it behind the decks, and I've always found if I'm in the crowd looking at someone and they're giving me that vibe, it just resonates with you as well. So I'd say definitely that. And then third one, I'd just say just keep going. Like you're gonna have them voices, aren't you, that doubt you. Just keep doing your thing. Do it because why? Do it for the reason you started, because you enjoy it, and then good things will come hopefully from that.
Yeah, definitely, mate. I love it. You know, three that I can definitely resonate with me, especially like you said about it's not all about the plugins, which I know that people do get lost down that rabbit hole of thinking that the way to make their music better is to get a better delay, get a better reverb. And yes, they do all sound a bit different, and you get, you know, but honestly, mate, for me, I don't think it's going to make your music become a professional stat, if there is such a thing, by getting brand new, the best new delay, the best new compressors and that.
Exactly, mate. That's what I mean. And you've always got them guys who can help you with that anyway. Do you know what I mean? You don't need to, the fun should be in writing the music, not in focusing on mixing down a tune. You know, if you can make tracks that make people dance, it's then either you learn how to do that or you just get someone to help you with it. It's not a problem. Like it's not a lot of the big DJs now are doing that because they want to enjoy that writing process. You know, they might use someone to mix down the track, or a lot of big labels as well. They have, you know, they only release tunes that have got their same mix and master engineer in it because they want all the tracks to have a similar sound. So even if you have had it mixed down or you've mixed down yourself, they'll just say, send me the stems dry, and, you know, and they'll get it done, which is what I've found is happening recently. Because they want it to have that sound that they've had for all the releases to make them consistent. So yeah, just literally write your tunes and have fun with them. That's literally the best tip you can give, really.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that. I've sort of like worked with a mix engineer for a few years now, and I'll just mix the tune to a stage myself personally where I'm like, that's how I pretty much want it to sound. But I don't really starting to swear now. I don't fuck about with it too much. I just get it, and then I'm talking just a bit of basic EQing, you know, bottom ends out of stuff and that, and then I'll just send the stems across to him, and then he will mix it down to pretty much that, but a better version. Because you're right, you can get lost in, you know, you need your room and everything to be really sounding crisp, and you know.
Yeah, definitely, man. No, completely agree,
mate. Loved it. Love speaking to you, dude. It's been brilliant. It's really nice to find out a little bit more about you, because it's somebody who I've obviously been watching on Instagram, been really impressed, mate, with what you do, your music, you know, your vibe, you know, you're a good guy. So, mate, I wish you all the best, honestly, mate. I reckon you're going to kill it.
No, definitely, mate. I've loved coming on as well. Like, it's the reason why I wanted to come on as well is because, like, we're saying, feel like you can have a lot of different people on, but a lot of the stuff we've said we've agreed with tonight, which is like the key. So it's good to speak to someone and just have it, you know, speak and share your views, kind of thing, innit?
100%, mate. It's it's really nice actually, the fact that most of the time I always think to myself with some of my workflows and that about starting with the leads, and like we said, I think I don't really come across that many people that actually agree with that. But like we're speaking about it, and definitely some similarities. So where can people find you, dude? If they want to find your music, see who you are?
Yeah, like most Instagram's the main platform for kind of like day-to-day stuff and you know, sharing unreleased bits. Any tracks that are out is on everywhere, so like Spotify, you know, Beatport, Apple. And then all of my SoundCloud is my main one for all my live sets from my events. So all my sets that we do at our parties, I always record them with the Tascam. So all my live sets are on there from every party that we've done so far, and also some unreleased edits and some edits that I can't release commercially. Yeah. So SoundCloud's my main one for DJ mixes, and then obviously you've got your Spotify's for all my releases.
Wicked, man. Mate, it's been great to talk to you. We have reached the end, unfortunately, so we'll have to sign off.
Yeah, man. Nice one. Thanks for having me.
All right, dude. No worries, mate.
Cheers, man.
Cool.